Suppose I live in a place called Crystal Land where there's a market for macaroons. As the producer, what I do for my everyday living is basically making macaron chip cookies and sell them to people. So in this market diagram, I'm the producer and whoever buy my cookies will be the consumers. And something that I also want to mention is that we assume this is a free market because Crystal Land, the place where I live, does not have a government, which means that the central authority will not coordinate every buying and selling decisions. And in this market, the only players are the producers and consumers. So previously, we looked at market demand and market supply separately, but now this diagram actually shows you how supply and demand interact with each other when you put them together. So initially, we see that the price actually reaches at the equilibrium level at point A, and on this particular point, my market price is 5, and my equilibrium quantity is 4. And the quantity that consumers are willing and able to buy is exactly equal to the quantity I'm willing and able to sell. So here, everything is in a balanced state, as you can see. But now suppose my macaron cookie company bought a new machine. And this new machine technology can help me produce more cookies in the same amount of time. So we have talked about how a new improved technology can lead to a rightward shift of the supply curve, right? So now my supply curve will then shift from S1 to S2. And we all know that the equilibrium will actually go from A to C according to our model. But today we want to explain what essentially drives the whole entire process and how the invisible hand of the market, or perhaps in other words, the market mechanism, work to keep demand and supply in balance. So before we even get to point C from point A, there's a stage where disequilibrium actually occurs, which is the point where my supply doesn't intersect with my demand. So after supply curve shifts at the original price level, you'll see that I'm producing a greater quantity of cookies at 12. But what the consumers demanded was still at the previous equilibrium quantity at 4. So now in this free market for macaron cookies, there's a gap existing between A and B, and this existence of excess supply is known as a surplus. So basically, at any price other than the equilibrium price, there's a market disequilibrium, and price will either be above or below my final equilibrium price level. So in this particular case that we consider for today, at disequilibrium point B, my price is actually higher than the final equilibrium point C. So as a result of that, we see a divergence between demand and supply here. But in Crystal Land, disequilibrium will actually not last forever. Why? Because as you remember, this place is actually without a government, and this is essentially a free market, right? So in a free market economy, price mechanisms will come in and work magically. And what I mean here is that they will clear the problems existing in surplus or shortage, and we'll see how it works. So the first function of mechanism is signaling the producers that this price might be too high. So you may wonder how I can tell the price is too high, since there won't be any number that directly shows me the value of macaron cookies every single day, right? But it is actually pretty easy to tell. For instance, if there's a whole bunch of cookies left on the shelf or inside my kitchen table, oh no, okay, the price for cookies might be too high since I haven't sold all of my cookies yet. So that can be a very obvious sign. And next, the price mechanism will give me an incentive to lower down my price, since consumers all love cheaper stuff, right? And when people see the price of macaron cookies are on sales, they will certainly buy more. And if I'm able to sell those excess cookies with a more attractive price, I will make profit out of it. Even though the price for cookies are lower than before, but it will be so much better than just leaving them inside my kitchen, and perhaps after several days, they will no longer be edible, and that would be such a waste, right? So price change will lead to movement along the demand curve. So what we'll see next is an extension of demand, as we can expect when consumers are buying more of my cookies, and a contraction of supply since I'm selling at a lower price, and that will reduce my quantity supplied. And we finally get to a point where we see our new market equilibrium point C. So what the price mechanism just did is that it actually eliminates all of the surplus, in which this rectangular area and the resources are allocated efficiently. So allocative efficiency refers to the fact that the society gets the most benefits from consumption, and the quantity of goods produced is mostly wanted by our society and consumers. And this is how the price mechanism in a market for macaron cookies work to ensure that supply and demand meet at equilibrium. So thank you so much for staying, and next time we'll look at a case where there is a shortage.